Lamontagne, the commander of Air Force's Air Mobility Command. He is escorted by Major General Andra L. Berry, the former Adjutant General of Nevada and Vice Chairman, Air of the National Guard Association of the United States. Major General Timothy J. Donnellan, the Adjutant General of Idaho and the Vice President, Army of the Adjutant General Association of the United States. Major General Gary W. Keefe, the Adjutant General of Massachusetts and a member of the National Guard Association of the United States Board of Directors.
Sure, I'd like to say a few words about it. Friday night. Again, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to introduce General Lamontagne. He is the commander of the Air Mobility Command, and if you think about the Air Mobility Command, you'd be mistaken if you're thinking an active duty command purely, because that also includes 40 Air National Guard wings under his command. And if you think about the projection of power across the globe, you have to think about this leader and his command that he is responsible for. In the recent strikes that we've all witnessed and that get so much attention, none of that would have happened without his formation and his leadership to support that action and support that deployment. So it is a distinct pleasure to have him here today, not only as a senior leader and a strategic leader for the U.S. Air Force and the Department of Defense, but also because of his responsibility for 40 of our Air Guard wings and all the men and women who serve in those wings. So please welcome to the stage General Lamontagne.
Appreciate it. Hey, thanks, team. It is great to be here with you this morning. We traveled up from St. Louis, which is effectively Anheuser-Busch country, and got into Molson Coors country this morning. A member of our team, Neil, used to actually work for Molson Coors as he was a part of the Air Force working with industry. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You worked for a year in Milwaukee for Molson Coors? That's what some of our airmen do. I think there were 5 Army folks doing the exact same thing. 10% truth, that's not exactly true, but a great opportunity to be here. Many thanks for the invitation to speak to the National Guard Association of the United States. As he said, I'm General Johnny Lamontagne, Commander of Air Mobility Command, and it is an honor and a privilege to spend some time with you to thank you for what you do for our states, what you do for the federal government, and what you do for the nation. In short, Air Mobility Command could not do what we do without this team. No doubt about it. You make us better each and every day. And so we'll get into it a little bit so you understand a little bit about what Air Mobility Command is. Next chart. Just about all the time, our mission is about somebody else, right? We are the supporting team to provide maneuver and lethality for the joint force, to provide the right effects at the right place at the right time. I would say we stand on the shoulders of giants that came before us. The men and women back in World War II, they talked about a D-Day invasion. Our Army Air Corps predecessors put thousands of airplanes in the sky on that night of 5 June 1944 to take the fight to the enemy on the 6th of June for that D-Day invasion. Ever since that time, that has been an asymmetric advantage for the United States. The ability to project power anywhere, anytime, at the time and place of our choosing, has been an asymmetric advantage that the United States has enjoyed. And our job, our vision, is to guarantee that going forward. We can't take that for granted. It's not easy work, but it's really good work. And we're going to continue to build that advantage for the nation. Our priorities are pretty simple. It starts with the airmen. The airmen make it happen. They're our most valued resource. Make no mistake about it. Our job is to take really good care of them, to organize, train, and equip them to be mission-ready airmen so they can help take the fight to any adversary at any location on the planet. Our intent is also to push decisions and authorities down to them. If all the decisions have to come to a chief master sergeant, a colonel, or a general, those decisions are going to be late to need and combat ineffective. So we're looking to push those decisions and authorities down to them so they can operate at pace. They can act, react decisively. From a mission perspective, we've got 5 clear priorities. First and foremost, we're going to guarantee our nation's ability to deliver nuclear weapons. Make no mistake, our team doesn't do that, right? Our team supports Air Force Global Strike Command when they deliver either conventional or nuclear weapons. But there's a lot of tactics, techniques, and procedures associated with the nuclear part of that, and we're going to make sure we don't let that atrophy despite a really busy ops tempo. Our second priority is getting better at mitigating threats. A lot of our airmen, when they're in the air, don't have great situational awareness. Don't know where their team is at depth, right? Where's blue? Let alone where the other team is, the adversary, and the stuff that they may or may not be throwing at us. And so if you have no situational awareness, I would say you have close to no chance. And we've got to get much better with our situational awareness so we can mitigate threats. The third priority is integrated C2. As I said at the beginning, it's almost never about us. We are flying and operating in support of other commands, whether it's Indo-PACOM, CENTCOM, or European Command, and obviously many others. And so the burden is on us to be able to integrate RC2 on their scheme of maneuver, their timing and tempo. And guess what? Each of those are different. And so that's our challenge. The fourth priority helps us with the previous 2. It's to connect digitally. If we have beyond line of sight communications at range, NIPR and SIPR, we'll be able to better mitigate those threats. We can also better integrate our C2 and push C2 all the way out to the edge. So we can get an intel update that's more than 12 to 18 hours old, because that's how long we'll be in the air, flying some great distances. And then the fifth one is to strengthen the tanker fleet. The KC-135 is a really old airplane, and we're looking to recapitalize that over time. As the KC-46 comes on, ideally we'll have some more KC-46s in front of us. On the commitment side of the house, airman mission commitment, we're committed to the things our Air Force is asking us to do. The Air Force Force Generation Model. We're building out a deployable combat wing at Little Rock. We're also committed to working for, we're the air component, Air Mobility Command, the air component for United States Transportation Command. And so we operate at their timing and tempo each and every day with your team's help. Could not, would not do it without our Air National Guard teammates. Next chart. So this gets a little bit into that command structure. The first couple of steps are the same for everybody, right? We go from the President to the Secretary of Defense. And then as an airman, we get our organized, train, and equip through the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. But from a mission perspective, we get our taskings from United States Transportation Command. In simple terms, the United States Transportation Command tells us where, when, and what. And together we do that each and every day. Meanwhile, the Air Force tells us how we're going to do it, the TTPs that we're going to use, and with what. Do we get a fleet of KC-135s, or do we have to augment that with some new KC-46s? Next chart. Bottom line, we could not do this without your team. Most days, the capacity and requirements, usually the capacity is about right here and the requirements are way up here. That, when I say capacity, active duty capacity. And with a lot of help from the National Guard, we're able to make up that, increase that capacity to try and meet those requirements. Your team supports us each and every day with long-term MPA on our staff, on our AOC team, our Air Operations Center, as well as flying, maintaining, and supporting airplanes all around the world. Could not, would not do it without you. We're only about 50,000 strong, right? So if you look at the ARC component of that, most of the mobility force is in the ARC, with the preponderance of that being in the National Guard. So when given the opportunity to say thank you very much, oh my goodness, would not pass this opportunity. Next chart. So 5 core missions in Air Mobility Command. We do airlift, air refueling, aeromedical evacuation, right, to get our wounded back to a higher level of care. Of course, the command and control to make all that happen. And then what we call our GAMS team, Global Air Mobility Support Structure, who are the men and women that support that at range. And a lot of those are in the Guard as well. We'll go through these one at a time. Next chart. On the airlift side, you can see the preponderance of the C-130 force is actually in the Guard. 129 airplanes, 48% of the force. On the C-5, a little more active duty and reserve centric, but a full 22%, 50 airplanes make up those 222 C-17s that really do a lot of the work around the world. We also have an executive airlift fleet, everything from Air Force One to a much smaller C-21 and everything in between. C-32s, they're like 757, C-40s like the 201st Airlift Squadron flies to help us out flying our nation's senior leaders around. The 201st Airlift Squadron in DC has 3 of those C-40s, and they do a masterful job. We have a lot of soldier citizens and airmen citizens too that obviously have to manage a military life, a civilian life, and their family. A lot of airmen in the Guard, I would say, that are fly for commercial airlines. And so our team also schedules those commercial airlines when they contribute a wartime capacity to the nation. The benefit for them is peacetime business. And so we will schedule both commercial and cargo civilian airliners to help make up some of that capacity to the requirement gap I was talking to earlier. Next chart, I'll talk about air refueling. Here, more than half of our capability, the nation's capability, is in the Guard and Reserve. 42% of the KC-135 fleet, a very capable but old airplane. And then you can see increasingly KC-46 coming online. Should be delivering another one of those this week to the tune of 95 airplanes. A total of 466 with more than 50% in the Guard and Reserve. Again, we cannot do our mission without this talented team. Next chart. To support all that is the Global Air Mobility Support System. This slide depicts the Air Mobility Operation Wings that support our flying operation in the Pacific and in Europe. Their mission is effectively threefold. They do the aerial port function to load and unload airplanes. They maintain them to keep those airplanes in the air. And then they provide a lot of C2 as well, so we can adapt to changes in a pretty dynamic environment. I should have also depicted the contingency response groups. Again, more than half of our capacity is in the Guard. On the active duty side of the house at Air Mobility Command, we've got 2 contingency response groups, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. The Guard, meanwhile, has 3. The 123rd CRG in Kentucky, the 182nd in Illinois, there we go, and Puerto Rico as well with the 156th. These teams are a lot more than just aerial port maintenance and C2. They're designed to go to a bare base, right, where a runway exists, but we don't have a lot of organic capability, and we need to stand up an operation. So whether it's recovering from a hurricane and trying to add some humanitarian lift, or in far-flung places in Syria, Iraq, the Middle East, and more, these teams will go in and stand up a base. Yes, they have that aerial port maintenance and C2 functions, but they also bring a lot of COM, CE, civil engineers, as well as contractors to help get fuel and a whole bunch of other support we're going to need at that base, as well as defenders to defend the air patch. A great capability, most of which is in the Guard, and we can't thank you enough. Next chart. Aeromedical evacuation. This is, my aide de camp is an AE nurse, right? When we need to rush somebody home, doesn't matter where they are on the other side of the world, we will go to great lengths to send an airplane and an aeromedical evacuation team to go lift them and bring them back to the United States. Only 15% of our capacity is on the active duty side of the house. Our Air National Guard teammates, you, have more than double that. More than 30% of our capacity is from the Guard. Could not, would not do this mission without you. We're looking to make some changes here in the near term as well. So right now, a 5-person aeromedical evacuation team can move about 25 patients. But we think as we go into crisis and conflict, we may need more capacity. And so we're looking to leverage some technology so that that same team could bring even more patients home. And then, of course, we also have the critical care air transport teams that can move, folks that aren't stabilized. They might be ventilated, and we can move them back all the way to the United States as well. A great capability in our National Guard. Next chart. Command and control. We also have the 618th Air Operations Center based at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. It's one of the largest AOCs, but unfortunately, it is the only AOC that I know of that does not have a formal relationship with the Guard or Reserve to help augment the team as we get into crisis and conflict. Some other AOCs, like the 603rd AOC in Europe, have a great relationship with our ARC teammates, so they've formally trained up and can go support them as we need more capacity, right, when stuff starts hitting the fan. We're looking to change that, working with your leadership for some new opportunities along those lines. But I will say, every day we get a lot of help from the Guard on long-term MPA at our AOC, and we'd be dead in the water without it. Next chart. Everybody knows we've been pretty busy. This whole team's been busy. For the Army, if you're a Patriot battery operator or a THAAD battery, you've been really, really busy. So last spring, we worked to move the Joint Force into CENTCOM in a pretty big way. A lot of Patriot batteries, THAAD batteries, missiles to help our Navy defend ourselves, to defend Israel and some of our allies and partners in the region. A whole lot of work. This was another example where our capacity was about right here and the requirements were well north of that. And we needed some help to bring the Joint Force over there. And we We don't want to do this again, but we mobilized the Guard on a really short timeline, 72 hours. In 72 hours, we had airplanes and crews, maintainers too, that were looking to help make up that deficit between capacity and requirements. Team, I'm here to tell you, there's not another nation or organization that can do what you do. And we are thrilled to partner with you. Of course, after that, we had dozens of tankers team up with both active duty and guardsmen flying 7 B-2s to the other side of the planet to degrade a key Iranian capability. Tremendous partnership across our team and Air Force Global Strike Command could not be done without help from the Guard. Next chart. Right after that, we lifted and shifted the old pivot to the Pacific for a Department of the Air Force level exercise. We brought more than 10,000 airmen, more than 300 airplanes to conduct a large-scale exercise at scale, right? At distance, at range. Most exercises, we sort of put pixie dust on the logistics challenge associated with moving large forces across vast distances. Not this year. I credit our predecessors that put this together in 2023, and we did it again in 2025. And the Guard showed up in spades with more than 50 airplanes flying about 500 sorties to make that happen. A great training opportunity, but make no mistake, it comes at a cost, right? There's an ops tempo piece of that, but a great training opportunity. And we can't say thanks enough for your participation to make that happen. So I'll return to where I started. I've been saying it all morning, but let me be clear. We could not do our mission without this team. So cannot say thanks enough for everything that you do. I would say we've got strong alignment between our portfolio and the Guard portfolio on the Angria side of the house. We've got about $200 million of reconciliation funding that we're looking to connect C-17 and KC-135s. And the good news is the Guard is already moving out to equip their airplanes with some satellite antennas. We absolutely are aligned and are moving out together to better connect the force, to better protect the force over the long term. Access to the Guard, we get it every day with long-term MPA in our headquarters, AOC, flying missions around the world, a lot of volunteerism, and when required, mobilization too. And I'm telling you, nobody can tell the difference between an active duty member and a Guard member because you're that talented, you got years of experience and credibility, and you provide outstanding capability for the nation. We talked about aeromedical evacuation. You have about double what we have, and we are moving out together to rehash how we do aeromedical evacuation so we can add capacity. If we can get this digital connectivity going, we did this on the department level exercise, had a satellite equipped C-17 and C-130, and the A teams were in the back, and the staff was throwing them some pretty tough challenges, and they needed to call for help. And because they had connectivity, they actually called home to a doctor, had a doctor on FaceTime, and they could go back and forth with a doctor real time to try and provide better care for the patient. That's something we can all do together going forward. Next chart. We're also moving together on a bunch of these priorities. I already talked to aircraft connectivity and modernization. Our interests are aligned, and I'd say we're moving in the same direction. We're looking to strengthen the tanker fleet. The KC-135, 60-year-old airplane. If we recapitalize that at a squadron per year, we're going to be flying the KC-135 into the 50s. And most of you probably know the first KC-135s came off the line in the last 50s, right? They're going to be almost 100 years old if it's completely uninterrupted recap. The good news is our Air Force announced we're going to buy another 75 KC-46s to help with that uninterrupted recap, to build out to 466 tankers. A long way to go, not even halfway there. Like the Guard, we're also moving out on deployable combat wings and unit of action. For Air Mobility Command, that rhymes with Little Rock, is going to be our first deployable combat wing, and they're doing a lot of work to be ready to deploy. And then future capabilities. The C-17, as strong a platform as it is, and the C-5, they are not going to fly forever. And so we're working on the next generation of airlifters. A lot of work to do along those lines, but we want to set the foundation for those requirements now so that we can be ready to buy an airplane on our timeline and not when those airplanes start to fail and we fly the wings off. We're also working the next generation air refueling system, effectively known as NGAS. Too early to tell whether that will be a new platform or just increased survivability for the platforms that we do have. You know, as we work through move, counter move, our tanker force is not well equipped to defend itself. So we got to figure out how we're going to do that. We recently sent out a new request for information to industry to try and get better fidelity on what a new platform would cost. Again, too early to tell if we're going to go down that road, but we got to work through the options. So now I'll turn it over to you. It is an honor and a privilege to spend time with you this morning when given the opportunity on a Sunday to come talk to the National Guard Association of the United States. You bet. We could not do our mission without you, would not want to do it without you. So thank you very much for what you do for the nation, your states, and our government. What's on your mind? Interested in your questions. Okay, no problem.
Hi, sir. Jen Moore from the 126 Air Refueling Wing at Scott. Can you talk a little bit about tankers as DCW and how that fits with 4Gen?
Yeah, so tankers, DCW, and how they fit in Air 4Gen. So I'd say we're committed to the Air Force fourth generation model. I think as far as deployable combat wings go, I think it'll be rare. I'll use Little Rock as an example, not tankers, but I don't know that Little Rock is necessarily going to deploy with their C-130s. As a matter of fact, at their first location, I think they're going to have some fighters and tankers at their base. They won't necessarily have airlifters, right? So the squadrons, the mission generation force elements, I think of them separately from the deployable combat wing. So I think they could be tasked together, but not necessarily tasked together. As far as tanker employment, excuse me, on Air Force fourth generation model, I will acknowledge the model's not perfect, right? It's a point of departure. Our intent at Air Mobility Command is to leverage the forces that are in the available bin. And so we start with the active duty forces, right? And if the active duty forces are in the available bin, I won't say we're going to wear them out, but we're going to wear them out, right? That's what they're there for. And then to the extent that the requirements go north of that active duty capacity, we will lean on capacity from the Guard and Reserve, again, starting with those forces that are in the available bin. And, you know, have we gone outside of that available bin? Yes, right? So the Secretary of Defense has extended forces into their reset bin when required. And sometimes when we still can't get to that requirement line, he will go into the previous bin, the certified bin. But by and large, we are trying to put some discipline in the system to leverage the forces that are in the available bin and then communicate to Transcom and our Air Force what the impact of using forces in the reset bin and the certified bin, you know, basically degrade readiness across the board. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what our nation asks us to do. Does that answer the question? Thank you very much.
Good morning, sir. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Burgess, the Regional Medical Plans Officer for the Office of Surgeon General, Massachusetts Air National Guard. With the advent of the LISCO kind of threat for the future and being a medical planner, what is your comfort level with our ability to utilize the available airframes that we have for aeromedical evacuation, knowing that that's not necessarily the priority? One of the concerns that we have on the medical planning side of the house is that we won't have dedicated aircraft to actually be able to remove or recover our wounded and get them back to, let's say, level 4 capacity in the future.
Yep, it's a tall task and a tough challenge for sure. So in the event we get into a big conflict, whether it's in the Pacific, Europe, or somewhere else, we will be deploying a lot of capability, and that is not going to stop. So those airplanes are going to have to cycle back and forth. Obviously, the lion's share of stuff's going to go by surface. So while we're going back to go get more stuff to bring to the fight, that's when we need to work the AE piece and make sure we get to those hubs to bring our wounded all the way home. A tough challenge, both from an airlift capacity perspective, but also, like I talked about, there's not enough aeromedical, AE teams, CCAT teams, nurses, med techs, doctors, and more. And so trying to figure out how we scale their ability to provide support to more patients, as well as bringing more airplanes to them. And so we're just working that cycle, bringing stuff to the fight, bringing wounded home. Much easier said than done, I will say, and I expect you're tracking the details.
Hey, sir, good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Lubert with the Louisiana National Guard 256 Brigade. So when we look at Ukraine, what are the lessons coming out of there as it relates to close air support, JTAC integration, future platform? What are the big rocks that you're taking away from that?
Yeah, so I think we've learned a lot of lessons. Both sides ran out of exquisite weapons on a pretty short timeline and then had to go to other weapons. Think small UASs, some of those quadcopters, right, that can find, fix, and finish. And some of those are much longer range that can, defeat enemy air defense systems pretty skillfully and pretty nimbly at a very low cost point. So being able to leverage a high-low mix of weapons, I think, is really important for us on two different levels, right? One is on offense, and we're, I think, increasingly working through that with our force design in the United States Air Force. And then the other's on defense. We're going to be on the receiving end of those things no matter what kind of fight we get into. I think that's true both at home and abroad. And so our Air Force is working to put more resources into that counter-Suez problem. And then, for higher threats, Golden Dome, I think we'll take care of those kinds of things. Great question.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Lieutenant Stiegler, Maryland Air Guard. Is there any plans for the National Guard to be involved in evaluation, test, deployment of the Rapid Dragon or other missile systems?
Rapid Dragon, a great capability that is, I would say, not going to be unique to any one component, right? The key part of that is it's an airdrop delivered platform, and the units that have that airdrop capability will be able to contribute. And so, we're just working through the early stages of standing up the program office and doing those kinds of things, but it won't be, an active duty only endeavor for sure. Is that the gist of the question?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here. Colonel Byron Newell from the Maniacs. I saw your picture up there with that beautiful KC-135, had a Havapod hanging off the left wing. I was curious your thoughts on, as we get after what we do within GRIA, is a Hava protection and the Havapod something we do concurrent with the intelligent gateway and the connectivity, or is it something that we're playing with to do after in terms of AMC's intent?
Yeah, great question. And we're trying to figure that out, right? I'd say there's probably a number of different theories on how we protect the tanker. Someone else is going to do it. and there's we can go into details at a higher level of classification on what that looks like, or that we have some sort of ability to do it with either decoys, jamming, or some sort of kinetic solution. Or that we don't go into the WES. I don't think that's going to be an option given the increase in range of some of these systems that are specifically designed to target us. And then fourth, we have, we manage our signature and have some signature managed tankers go in that can help avoid that end game defeat. Specific to your question, I think we're going to need a layered approach on, a little bit of jamming, a little bit of decoy, maybe some kinetic end game defeat, but we're not there yet, don't have the answers. But we're working with the SPO, the Guard, reserves and active duty as well. Right now, just took a brief 2 days ago how they're basically putting the wiring together on a couple of additional 135s to support said pods, right? Part of that is I would characterize as early experimentation to see what's in the realm of the possible, but it is possible, and we're moving out with it right now, just like the Maniacs.
Morning, sir. Dan Boyack, Adjutant General of Utah. I'd like to follow up on his question. Fairly familiar with the KC-135 test efforts that are going on. Some of them have been going on 5, 6, 7 years, especially the connectivity piece you're talking about. Saw a product out on the main floor there that successfully connects the KC-135, all platforms when it's airborne, Navy, Air Force, everybody talking together, MUO, Starlink, brings everything together. It looks like it's a pretty finished product, been proven in several exercises, including a refor pack. What seems like it's missing sometimes is the actual requirement so that a vendor can start filling that. We talk about fighting tonight. It looks like there's stuff that's ready to go. It's sitting out on the shelf, but looking for requirements, and when can we start to see that on some of the aircraft? So
we just had a tanker summit on Wednesday, KC-46 and KC-135, and we had this exact discussion. And so I charged our A58, Brigadier General Corey Simmons, to basically codify that requirement so that we can start putting the money that we've been allocated against it. And so some others would say the dog has caught the car, right? And it's time to go, and we're moving out. So that requirement should be codified probably within the next 2 months formally, so we can go start putting money and cutting into hardware just like you're talking about.
So you're saying there's a chance? Sorry.
We're moving out. Appreciate it. Time for one more question.
Good morning, sir. I did not plan on being the last one, but hello, everybody. So, Captain Laura Knight, and I'm a critical care PA at the Louisiana 159th Med Group. So back in about 2021, NGB actually revoked flight medicine credentials for PAs and nurse practitioners. Not just stopped them from going to flight med school, but revoked people who actually were already credentialed for it and had been doing it for many, many years. So since you mentioned AE so much in your discussion, some of the rumors at like the Society of Air Force PAs and everything was that you guys might be starting to utilize advanced practice providers like PAs and nurse practitioners with the AE program as a ground supplement to have a provider and help out that team. So what do you see as the role for advanced practice providers moving forward, potentially with, an AE component?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space, but I don't think we've worked through the details on exactly how we're going to do it. And so I tried to articulate that we're going to have a capacity challenge in the event we get into a big fight. And so I think we're going to need to augment our AE teams with other folks that can do that business. And maybe they don't have tremendous amount of experience or credentials in the air, but I think we can work through that in, lickety split, especially if we need to bring back, our nation's best to a higher level of care. And so we are talking about doing exactly that, basically having our AE teams be augmented by others so that we can increase that capacity that I alluded to earlier. But I don't have the details on how exactly the Air Force is going to do that or the Guard's going to do that. But ideally, we'll be aligned together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much. That was an amazing conversation and insight. It's leaders like you that help us as a profession see into that future and seeing how we need to transform. I think I can, speak confidently on behalf of the 54. We are 100% in line with the Air Force desire for transformation and to achieve that future Air Force. And it's leaders like you who help us see into that future, see how we align. We ask for your continued advocacy for recapitalizing our mobility wings and also to tell the message about how accessible this formation is to the needs of our nation and needs of the Air Force. So, sir, our legacy is based on leaders such as you. One such leader was General Herbert Temple, who we refer to as the father of the modern Army National Guard, and he also served as the chief of the National Guard Bureau. He passed this past December. Every year we have a commemorative ornament that we develop for this conference, and our ornament this year depicts the Temple Army Readiness Center in Virginia, and we'd like to present it to you on behalf of your participation here and also your leadership that you provide to such a large footprint of the Air National Guard. So thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort our distinguished guest and his party from the platform?